I'll admit I laughed on our live reaction of the Game Awards when we saw Clive, and I was like, "Is it happening? Is it happening?" And then all of a sudden, it's Tekken. I knew something looked off with the character model, and I was like, "No, Tekken got Final Fantasy before Xbox." Hello, everybody, and welcome to the State of Xbox in 2025. My name is David Burdette. I'm the lead editor with Gamingtrend.com, where this episode is located, and I am joined by two esteemed guests. I've got Mr. Luke Lore, who's the creator of the Xbox Expansion Pass, as well as Samuel Tolbert from Windows Central. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you asking me to be here, David.
Thank you very much, Luke.
I'm honored to be here, appreciative of you inviting me because it's a pretty cool deal to get to look ahead for Xbox, and I'm stoked to do just that, man. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, for sure. It's insane that it is already 2025. I made the joke in the XEP Discord of feels like it was just like a week ago that I hung out with you and Sam back in LA. And we're already looking forward to whatever's next, next Summer Game Fest, next Xbox Showcase, all these things. And, it does raise a lot of questions because where is Xbox at right now? We've got to take a look at that, deep dive into it. And kind of to start that off, we have to recap 2024 and how all of that went. So the year started off, or if you look at the year, it was a really strong year overall for first party because Hellblade 2 and Indiana Jones were big games. Did either of you play those titles?
I'll start with Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 was among my favorite games of last year, bar none. It doesn't matter, first party, third party, it didn't matter. I really enjoyed Hellblade, and I think more than any other game, Hellblade 2 stood out to me as accomplishing the goal that it set out to do. And despite doing that, it still did not meet the expectations that I think others had for it. And that's kind of a disappointment in my eyes in terms of messaging for Xbox, because Hellblade 2 is a near masterpiece of audio design, of visual design, of merging the experience in the two. And I thought the combat that it did showcase was impressive. The counterpoint to that is I think many people were looking at something with that impressive of a visual fidelity audio design and wanting God of War. They wanted a Senua of War or a God of War competitor out of Xbox. And I think that was, if not the first foray into really changing people's minds that the direction is not meant to match Sony, but it is no longer going to be the same formula that people are accustomed to. And in that respect, I'm very pleased with it. But I really did love Hellblade 2. I also think it set a tone that has finally showed people that Xbox is in a different direction.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that was kind of interesting with Hellblade was like it took 7 years for that game to come out, which was arguably way too long for a game like that to come out. As good as it looks, as well performed as it was, you didn't get a game that was bigger really necessarily than the original game in terms of the time sink. And I think that probably underwhelmed some people, but I mean, you can't argue with the visual fidelity and the performance aspect of it, because the game was the best looking game arguably anyone has ever seen.
I would agree. I think also something to keep in mind that has helped me make peace with the very point that you made, in that it took a long time for this game to be made, and it doesn't feel like it does more than the first game, even though in many ways it objectively does. But it doesn't feel like that to a lot of us. And something that I was reminded of recently on a recent episode of XEP was that the technology that went into creating this visual fidelity, this audio design, can now be put to use by other Xbox studios, by other studios within the Pantheon. We know also that Ninja Theory is working on Project Mara, and I believe a third project, which the name escapes me at the moment. And so what went into making Hellblade 2 specifically, is going to pay dividends in other ways beyond that of just Hellblade 2. And it does not matter to the gamer where that manifests unless the games are good and well received. but that is something to keep in mind when we are evaluating how Ninja Theory and Hellblade produced for Microsoft and Xbox in 2024.
Yeah, I think all of that is very fair to say, and I agree with basically everything you just said, Luke. So for me, I'm going to hone in on the other half of what David brought up, which is Indiana Jones. Now, I knew I was going to like Indiana Jones the moment I heard it. Machine Games is just inventing new ways to beat up Nazis. Cool, I'm there. That's fine. That's good. But I was blown away by how good Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is. I mean, Machine Games crafted a fantastic adventure. Troy Baker, hats off. The performance is amazing. He absolutely nails and channels Harrison Ford's, sort of slightly manic energy as the archaeologist. All this, it's not just the voice, it's all the subtle mannerisms. And it's also just a fun game to play. It feels good to pick up everything you can and go, okay, I want to beat up this guy with a shovel, and then I'm going to eat this bread to get some health back, and then I'm going to go use my whip to get over here. It's a blast. I mean, I reviewed that game. I already said a lot about it. I could talk about Indiana Jones for hours, so I'll cut myself off. But I'm very happy to see Machine Games being rewarded, at least so far, and how well people have liked that game and are taking to it. And I think it was a very good way for Xbox to cap off the year by having that in their portfolio.
Yeah, and I think that there's also sounds like there's a little bit of discussion, at least behind the scenes, on a possible, continuing this Indiana Jones series. So anytime you can even see some smoke on something like that, for, in all fairness, on anything Xbox right now, anytime we can see a continuation of something, it's generally a good thing. Because that's just, again, furthering these studios, keeping these studios in motion, as opposed to cutting from different studios. We unfortunately, and this is another thing that we'll talk about from this year, but Tango Gameworks, we made a hit and we lost them. So it's nice to see a lot of positivity, even in the midst of some of the trouble that has gone on.
I think that's the kind of the name of the game. They did have Xbox, to me, had their strongest year in probably a decade in terms of releases, quality of releases, and just what the brand is doing. But alongside that is the very sad reality that they also cut tons of jobs, not a Microsoft specific thing, but also not to be ignored. They shut down a studio that was award-winning in Tango Gameworks, whether it was Shinji Mikami. It was Shinji Mikami that was there, correct?
Yep. Yeah. He left in 2023, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
And whether they were unable to reach certain heights without him or not is not the point. The point is they shut down a studio that people recognized and that was a presence in Japan. And
you lost talent.
They lost talent. And so that is definitely a concern. They also did it in the same year where, and again, correct my timing, but they let go of Toys for Bob. Was that in 2023 or 4?
That technically was the beginning of 2024, and kind of a weird one, because it kind of seems like that was going on even under like the Bobby Kotick regime. They wanted out for a while, but the timing at the end of the day is that it happened then, and so
exactly. So letting talent go. But by the same token, both those studios are still alive now, so there's something to be noted within that. And IP retention within Microsoft, there's still many of those IPs still exist, and they still have the ability to make games within the pantheon that those studios worked with. So yes, they did indeed lose talent in those studios, but those studios are still alive. And so we don't know the behind the scenes of confirming, like, did they do this on purpose so that those studios could stay alive? Because did they not? I don't know. It's not really my business to know or even care past the point of saying this happened for Xbox.
Yeah. Well, on that token, it wasn't even just first party, like the third party offerings were very good for Xbox. We had heard a lot of different things about Xbox, like stopping as many third party deals on Game Pass. And while that was true in terms of, yes, we weren't getting like, I'm trying to remember the name of the game from last year, but it was not Black Myth Wukong, but there's a like Wukong Fallen Dynasty or something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but like that was a
the Koei Tecmo game.
Yeah, the Koei Tecmo. Yeah, so that was a big game that released. Like we may have not had necessarily that level of third-party support on Game Pass, but we still had a lot of really good stuff that was hitting Xbox specifically. I know it's not technically, it's a first-party game, Call of Duty, it's everywhere, but you know, that was really strong for them because Black Ops 6, it was the most played game. It boosted Game Pass sales. Like it did what they were hoping it would do, at least in terms of engagement. Stalker 2, we see that did really well. That's been played very well. Sold over 1 million copies, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's again,
yeah, in the first 48 hours. Actually.
First
so
48
it's
hours.
Probably well beyond that at this point.
So we had that one I like to bring up just because it's a great game, Dungeons of Hinterberg. You know, that got a lot of good acclaim. It may have not necessarily sold very well, most likely, but it was on Game Pass, so it was seen. So now these devs hopefully have a chance to make something else and make something great after the fact because they've got that attention, which Game Pass helped them get. Anything else third party wise that you guys saw this year that just really hit you in terms of just how it affected Xbox?
Well, if you don't mind, Luke, I'll just go really quickly here. The one that jumps out to me immediately is Genshin Impact. I think Genshin Impact is one of those games a lot of people, myself included, had just sort of thought, okay, all right, this is never going anywhere else. PlayStation locked these down into eternity, even though it was originally announced for the Nintendo Switch. I think a lot of people forget that, and that still hasn't happened. So that's
I didn't even know that.
No, seriously, no one remembers that. I didn't remember it until Daniel Ahmad posted about it on Twitter. But like seeing Genshin Impact come over to Xbox finally, the point I'm making is like, okay, all right, there are discussions happening there. They are still keeping things moving. That was a very big deal. We're hearing that a couple of the other Cognisphere / Hoyoverse, it's the different labels and branding can get confusing. Those games like Zenless Zone Zero are probably going to come over. Honkai Star Rail is probably going to come over eventually. So that to me was very encouraging. And as well, you have a lot, while nothing has happened yet, you have a lot of comments from Square Enix where they're basically all but confirming, yeah, Final Fantasy 16 is going to come over at some point. And yeah, we're probably not going to do the exclusivity periods that we've done in the past because this isn't working for us. So I think that is definitely going to pay off. If not this year for some, then definitely well into the future for the platform.
I'll admit I laughed on our live reaction of the Game Awards when we saw Clive, and I was like, is it happening? Is it happening? And then all of a sudden it's Tekken. I knew something looked off with the character model, and I was like, no, Tekken got Final Fantasy before Xbox.
Anything to keep my girl teeth out of Tekken. That's what they're doing, really.
I think Game Pass was beyond exceptional in 2024. Many people know that I'm a teacher by day, gamer by night kind of thing. And during summer break, I took the time to just explore the Game Pass library. I played Lords of the Fallen was the first game I kind of went into that was a backlog game, and played half of that via cloud, the other half on my console, thanks to Game Pass. Followed that up immediately with Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, which an incredible game with an unfortunate name, but it was a truly wonderful game experience day one into Game Pass. Followed that up with Still Wakes the Deep. Really cool experience. Glad I played it, but a game that I probably wouldn't have been happy if I'd purchased it. Wonderful inclusion in Game Pass. Followed that up immediately with Flintlock into Game Pass. And so it was, and then prior to that, I believe it was Dead Island 2 was in this year. There were a couple other reasonably high profile third party drops.
Frostpunk 2 was a fantastic game. Now, granted, I that's on the PC side, so PC Game Pass, but that is coming to console and Xbox Game Pass later this year. So just furthering your point, just how many.
Exactly that. And that was just so noted by me, is the quality of titles that were entering into the Game Pass ecosystem from third party, not to mention some of the lesser popularized games like Age of Mythology or Aura History Untold, which first-ish party, right? Like sort of, but whatever.
I mean, Age of Mythology is just straight up first party.
Is it?
Ours,
Okay.
ours publishing. Ours the publishing side.
Thank you. And I knew there was an oddity in one of them, but that's kind of my point is that Game Pass continued to deliver, and you didn't have to look hard to find it. I think some people choose not to look hard sometimes, but for that reason, we were talking prior to recording, David. That's why I was so happy to see that Call of Duty did well, because it upped subscription intake for Microsoft and got so many people into the service. And my hope is that because of that, they are now able to explore and experience a lot of these games like the ones I mentioned.
It's I'm again just one of those things where I'm glad to see that Xbox really even though there was less in Game Pass, it was quality. Like it wasn't, it might have not been the same barrage that we had before, but it was a quality that we continuously got from Game Pass. And like you said, that's really the biggest benefit to Game Pass is just that we get the opportunity to try some of these games that are sometimes are critically acclaimed, but just that are outside of our comfort zone, outside of the things we want to play. And it gives us that opportunity to sometimes discover new genres. Like a Dragon, never thought in 100 years I was going to like that game. Tried it on Game Pass and got hooked on the series. So, thanks Game Pass. you gave me a new game. On the kind of lower end of what happened with Xbox's hardware, it was quiet. It was there was no mid-gen upgrade to go next to the PlayStation Pro. There was the Fire Stick capability. That was a really big new thing. But we heard all this stuff about handheld and all that whatnot, and then it turned out to be okay. This is still years down the road. We are thinking about it, and when you hear that, it's automatically okay. There's a chance we may not see this, even if you're thinking about it. That you're looking at you can tell that usually means we're looking at the market. We want to see what things shake out to, because I've talked on other podcasts before. It is a crowded handheld market. Atari's about to put a handheld out. Like we are in the age of handhelds. So it's not just you should put out a handheld right now. What stood out to you in terms of hardware this year when it comes to Xbox? And when I say hardware, I'm not even just talking about just consoles. We can talk about like gear, things that accessorize with your Xbox.
Sam, you want to go first? You want me on this one?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this are going to be really quick. I think the main thing to me wasn't even first party, it was third party, and that is a lot of people were picking up, at least in my circle of friends and my colleagues and all that, are picking up on the ROG Ally and the ROG Ally X specifically as, hey, this is kind of an unofficial Xbox handheld. Like right now, you can just use PC Game Pass with this, and this is kind of cool. I've seen a lot of people now say that, like, look, if you have the extra cash to get this over a Steam Deck, because it's certainly not cheap, especially the Ally X model. That like this is a great way to go. If you have to travel a lot, this is a great way to play your Xbox games. And with Play Anywhere, all the first party Game Pass stuff, that's going to sync with all your console stuff or anything you play on your computer at home. So that's interesting to me. But otherwise, I think it was a very uninteresting year, hardware wise, in my opinion.
I will take a different route for the sake of our conversation, Sam, and say that I thought it was very interesting in a hardware year in that Xbox definitively and clearly reminded everyone they were not going to be doing mid-gen, whereas PlayStation did bring out a PlayStation 5 Pro, which I would argue, and I recognize that I cover Xbox, and so that might generate some bias, but I feel like that console has proven itself to be largely unnecessary at this point in time. That's not to say those that have purchased it are not enjoying it, but the improvements at this point in time when we're recording feel marginal. And you even got major publishers like Remedy giving players the ability to opt out of those improvements, which is a red flag kind of moving forward. You combine that with Xbox again saying no to creating new mid-gen hardware, but making themselves available in more places over the last year and a half. I recently completed a review on the MetaQuest 3, and then I've got my Steam Deck one, which I'm finishing up around recording. It should be out this coming week from when we're recording. And that has been very evident that Xbox is trying to exist in the handheld market also because they just put out the This is an Xbox campaign, and all of that showcases all the hardware that is not an Xbox but could be your avenue in, your way to play. If you're going into a Steam ecosystem where you have to purchase your Xbox games, fine, but those games are there. If you're accessing it via cloud, via a MetaQuest or your phone or your Samsung TV, fine, that's where they are. And I think the hardware conversation is simply that there does not need to be hardware to be Xbox. And I'm sure every listener has heard this time and again from Xbox content creators, but with that being the direction of Microsoft going forward, it does beg the question, should you even concern yourself with Xbox hardware in the future? And I think that is a rightful and fair question to ask.
Yeah, I think you're nail on the head, especially going into the next topic of just the confusing communication that we've had from Xbox. Just everybody will be on cloud nine. Like we said, it's a really strong year for Xbox. Everybody's on cloud nine about things. And then some random thing is said and it brings everybody down. It mellows everybody out. Like, you know, when I hear a suit say we're redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan, like, I can't say that doesn't raise my hackles a little bit, because it's like, wait, I'm the fan. You're telling me what it's like to be a fan,
right?
Like, and it's not just that, it's a pattern of it. And we've heard different things about constant changes in direction in the Xbox team. Like, does that improve in 2025? Have they finally found the direction, or are we just going to keep repeating this cycle?
Right.
Luke, do you want to go first on that?
Tell me I don't mind, but tell me the question definitively that
it's
I'm
really
trying
just,
to answer.
Well, really, it's just, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, I guess, when we get into the next segment, we're talking more about 2025, but like, how do you feel about everything in 2024? All of these things that have happened, all of this confusing, like, does it detract to you from this strong year that they've had?
Yes, it does detract from me. The messaging, I think, detracts greatly from this past year. I've been very disappointed with Xbox's messaging, despite seeing some incredible messaging. Like, you go to that showcase that they put out in this past year, incredible showcase. Sam and I had the privilege of being there together and getting to share thoughts immediately thereafter, and seeing the energy of all those involved.
I was there with you too.
You were. I was just more speaking in like our guest approach, but yeah, you're right. Just to be clear for the listeners. Sorry, David. I was just trying to make the point that like we got to feel that vibe, and it was different. I hadn't felt that vibe from Xbox in a long time. Then you flash forward like a month, 2 months maybe, and it's like, yeah, those games we said weren't going to be going to PlayStation, now it's going to PlayStation. Before Indie had even come out, we got a one more thing from Jeff Keighley at I want to say a Gamescom, and it's like,
it was Gamescom,
yeah, we just told you all those great reasons to have your console. You don't need it anymore. Again, you follow that up 2 months later with a you don't need your console ad. And so that is very confusing, because Xbox fans that have been with Microsoft for a long time, they have waited. They've waited with bated breath for something special to arrive to the ecosystem, and it looks like it's finally happening, but it's not happening. And so that's been a very strange thing to witness, because Microsoft has told us for so long, it's coming, the games are coming, the games are coming. The games are about to arrive, and they started arriving, and now they're saying you don't need an Xbox. So it has been a bit of a strange messaging and time period.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. I think it's also an issue where part of it is, okay, I can see where the sense is coming from in your this is an Xbox campaign. Like, I get what you're going for, but it feels like you might be getting the cart before the horse, because a lot of the stuff that, like, full disclosure, like we've heard over at Windows Central, a lot of the stuff you're trying to plan about, like, oh, well, maybe there's these OEMs and maybe the Xbox operating system can be used on these different devices. Like, a lot of that hasn't materialized. Maybe some of it materializes soon, real soon. Maybe it doesn't. So, like,
maybe in 2 weeks.
Maybe in 2 weeks, maybe not in 2 weeks. I don't know. You
Mhm.
know, maybe it doesn't. The point is, at the end of the day, that feels like a brilliant ad campaign after you've done that. And
Yeah.
you know, and also like to your point about Indiana Jones and some of the weirdness there. And it's like, okay, well, if this was the plan, why not just say that from the beginning? Like, why did it take this long to say it? I think if you had said it right from the beginning when the game was announced, it wouldn't have been this whole weird issue. Like, what is the difference? What is the disparity? Just because, to your point, I haven't seen anyone complaining about Doom. Doom's being fully multi-platform, and everyone's been like, "Cool, great, fantastic, game looks great. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to play it." Doesn't matter. So,
And it was because it was right at the start.
Yeah,
there was
I'm not
there
trying
was
to
nothing stopping. Yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of that because I know we're going to talk about 2025 in games, so we can talk about Doom then. But like, you know, just an example of like, just say it from the beginning, and I think you cut a lot of this unnecessary weirdness out. Is where my head is at personally. I think they need to actually get some of these platform announcements out, and then a lot of this stuff goes away.
Agreed. I forgot my point, but yes, I agree.
Is Xbox announcing their games too early?
Xbox.
Go ahead, Luke. Go ahead.
Xbox has announced their games too early. We know so much of their slate that's coming through. We know so much about the games that they are working on, and that is not a bad thing, mind you. But it does show that they are, one, working to stay in this space, and that two, they're working to make money for their business. So as customers, we know that we've got stuff on the way. There's a reason to have Game Pass. The reason to have Xbox is not necessarily quite the same thing, but I don't much care, provided I have access to my Xbox library. And I think that, and this is what I was getting at before I stuttered a moment ago, and that is, it's a shame that the messaging has been such a distraction, because there are fantastic people at Microsoft Hardware, in Microsoft PR, at Microsoft Software, working to bring great things to gamers. And I mean just fantastic human beings that are doing that. And so I hate that they've gotten this strange rap as a result of it, but I won't shy away from complimenting the good work that is being done. And because they are announcing all these games and we know so much about it, it gives me a lot of things to look forward to, which is nice, because on the PlayStation side, I had some stuff to look forward to with Spider-Man and Ragnarok and Ghost of Yotai, but now it feels like I don't know what I'm looking forward to, and that's a strange place to be in as well. So I don't know what the right answer is of the two, but it is something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I don't want to. This is a complicated topic about like, hey, when do you announce a game? And I don't think it's a one size fits all. So to answer your question, David, I'm going to kind of cop out and say I think they've announced some games too early, but I don't agree that that's a broad thing. Doom: The Dark Ages, I'll bring that game up again, was just announced, you know, a few months ago, and it's going to be out later this year. That seems perfectly reasonable to me. You know, so I think it's, you know, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which, yeah, I know everywhere, but it is first party. It's under them at the end of the day. Like, that was announced and then out a few months later. So it's, I don't know. It's a weird situation. I think a lot of the games that we've known are coming for so long were victims of COVID. Like Fable was announced in 2020. I don't think we'd still be waiting on that game if it wasn't for the pandemic. So, you know, it's complicated.
Yeah, Starfield is arguably the worst example of it, of announcing a game knowing that this studio is going to have issues. Like this is a studio that needs to take their time, and even if they take their time, half the time a game comes out and it still has issues. So that one is one that is definitely was odd, because of the fact that usually Bethesda had started getting really good at announcing something and it coming out within the calendar year. So at least we're not getting the, you know, all these games are going to be out in 12 months messaging. They learned that was not good.
That's different. No, let's not do that.
Consider like Starfield's a good example of how not to do an expansion, how not to roll out content, because for all the debatable quality of Starfield, and it is debatable, my love for it notwithstanding, Shattered Space disappointed. Like Starfield had mixed reception. Shattered Space had a negative reception. And you look at that in comparison to, say, something like Vessel of Hatred, an expansion to another very well received RPG, admittedly a different type, but my point is a big audience with high expectations, and Vessel of Hatred was very well received. So I think there is a Bethesda problem. I think there's a Todd Howard problem that is coming out of the Starfield, I guess you would say, post-mortem of its launch, right? Because we'll get at least another expansion, and I look forward to it. Just to be clear, I've put 5 days plus into Starfield. I have a lot of love for that game, but
Luke is saying that as someone who doesn't care as much for Bethesda games too.
Agreed, very much. I do not. I think the worst parts of that game are where you're sitting and talking and dealing with the creation engine issues. I think the best parts of the game for me have been the action and the flying and whatnot. And so that's my personal take on it. And my hope is that they can clear up that messaging on Starfield and establish it. I also, we have predictions later. Never mind. I'll save my next one for predictions.
Well, in any case, I think as we've talked about Starfield specifically, like that, it is an example of a lot of things. Like when you see Phantom Liberty come out, like literally was part of the fix for that game. Whereas Starfield, it almost felt like a lot of the fixes were almost rolled back with it launching. Like it was like, oh, this bug's reappearing, this bug. And that to me speaks to code being more convoluted than it possibly should be. I made a really big post about Starfield before it came out about creation engine, and we could sit here all day and talk about the merits and detractors of that engine, but there's definitely some things that need to be done better within that studio.
Starfield reminds me of Halo Infinite. You got all these pieces that you glued together, and you got a really playable, cool thing, but you glued it together. That means it's hard to build on.
Any other comments on that, Sam, before we move on?
No, I mean, I like Shattered Space more than Luke did, but I still think it's fair that they haven't addressed a lot of the issues that a lot of people are running into, and they need to take a look at that and do a post-mortem on what didn't work, what isn't working for at least a sizable chunk of the audience as Starfield enters its second year. I don't know exactly. It depends on how you define it, but like, you know what I mean.
Hey, when it releases on PlayStation this year, we can go into first year,
Hey, you can't get to my prediction. That's not fair.
I'm just messing around. So 2025, we are here. Xbox is here. We got to look at what's coming next. On hardware, I want to go with hardware first because it's kind of the quicker of the two. The assumption is it's going to be another quiet year. Like I would not assume that we're going to get anything, or they're going to be any new partnerships. Do we expect any like surprise accessories? Like what's going down here?
You are not getting new hardware launching this year in terms of a console or handheld. And I think as far as any like accessories, the ones that I think a lot of people are looking forward to, like Elite 3 or Sebel or whatever it is, I don't think are happening this year either. I say that with the caveat that Sam might come in with more updated Windows Central style information, because I'm going off of what a recent XEP guest Jez Corden said. So maybe that's shifted or changed.
No, I think that's correct. I think that's correct. I think anything happening on the hardware side is very firmly going to be platform software, partnering with third party. I think if something happens with hardware, it's not on their hardware. How's that? I'll put it that way.
Makes sense.
But
do you think we see any OEM, like any stuff, Steam, these whole Steam machine, Xbox machine? Do you think we see any of that at CES?
CES is soon. CES is real soon, but I think we see. I think we could see something this year, definitely.
Okay. So with all of that kind of in our rear view, is Xbox hardware just going to continue to decline from here?
Yep.
Broadly speaking, but I think GTA 6 is weird because that's because we have the problem, and I wrote about this recently, right, about the black hole games, and that is affecting everybody. Even if Xbox, it's just far more aggressive than on the PlayStation side. But GTA 6 is genuinely one of the big question marks in terms of, okay, do the 50, 60, 70 million people who regularly like this game, play this game online. Do they actually move over and finally upgrade to a new console for this, or do they not? So I think yes, with an asterisk mark is where I'm going to settle.
Gotcha. Do we think, and this is more of a on the fly question here, because you brought up GTA and it made me think a little bit harder on all of this. Does it launch on the Series S?
Yes, a game has to, and they've already committed to it, so it will.
I'm gonna say no. It doesn't. If there's one game above all else that can break that rule, it's the GTA. But that's me being tongue in cheek. Like, I also think that game will sell consoles like crazy, and Microsoft will bend over backwards to help them with everything. And they got GTA 5 running on PS3s at the time. So sure, but like, to be contrary, no, not a chance.
Well, I mean, we saw what the college football effect had. 10 years waiting for that game, and then that game legitimately, I guarantee you, that sold a bunch of Series S's, like at the least. Yeah, because that game is I'm very interested to see how they follow that up, because they had the benefit of 10 years of people not having it. So now let's see what happens after, how you go forward.
I believe Matt Piscatelli even shared that that's the best-selling sports game in the U.S. of all time now. I believe that was,
I'm almost sure you're right. Yeah, it's insane. And I mean, again, they did a great job, as well as it moved consoles. Like, I believe it was even said that console sales rose during the month when that came out. So that's a good thing. As you said with GTA, a rising tide lifts all ships. And if there's a definition of a rising tide in any video game, it is GTA. GTA will do it for anything. Speaking of video games, we're finally to the games of 2025, the Vigima games, the whole reason that we own hardware. Xbox, it definitely I hate saying this is the year of Xbox thing, the mantra that we hear all the time. But the patience does seem like it is paying off, considering we have at least 5 titles that have been windowed for 2025. You've got Avowed that's straight up dated. Mm-hmm. You've got Doom, The Dark Ages. You've got South of Midnight. You've got Fable, and you've got The Outer Worlds 2, which joins that lineup. That's just incredible. That lineup just in and of itself is a humongous lineup.
Yeah, on paper, and game quality, notwithstanding, we'll see how the games launch. I have faith, broadly speaking, in a lot of them, but like, just looking at those names and the teams attached to them and what they're doing, I think you can make a very solid argument for this being one of Xbox's strongest years on paper, prior to actually experiencing it like than we've seen ever. I think you can make that argument. I personally would make that argument looking at this lineup. And also, I know, understandably, these aren't announced, or one of them isn't announced, but like, there's going to be a new Call of Duty. We're going to get a new Call of Duty experience in there, so that's going to be on that. Towerborn, I'm not sure if it's getting its full 100% launch this year, but that's definitely going to be coming to Xbox Early Access, like Xbox Game Preview. We know that's going to be happening. So there's even more stuff in there on top of these big hitters.
And there's games we don't know about, like straight up do not know about, that a lot of times are hiding in the shadows, waiting. I mean, we do have the rumored January developer direct. That's been a thing for the last 2 years, is probably going to happen again this year. There are different things that could be hiding.
I think when you look at the current announced lineup for this year, there's no way you can look at it and feel disappointment. And I would argue that you could say the same thing prior to 2024, when you saw Hellblade, Starfield, Shattered Space, Vessel of Hatred, Call of Duty. We did know about Indiana Jones in there. And then you had Aura and Age of Mythology.
Age of Mythology, yes.
Yep. When you had those in there, you could not look at that lineup and feel disappointment either. I take special excitement seeing that Doom the Dark Ages is on our doorstep, knowing that Avowed had time to gestate and really like work out some of the bugs that can come with a game like that, particularly in the wake of Shattered Space and Starfield. And then you look at South of Midnight, and it feels like this game not only captures culture and passion, but it also feels like they've been quietly responding to concerns. Like the stop motion was a bit of a hindrance for some. Seeing the combat also gives you a third-person action game vibe, which I'm really excited about. Hearing the things that we've heard and what we know about Fable, which is like seeing the gameplay that they've officially revealed, and then the things that we've heard from those who have seen other gameplay, we have every reason to be excited. The questions that I run into are more surrounding release date for Fable, what the next Call of Duty entails, and whether Outer Worlds 2 hits its date or intended date. Is it going to be this year? Is it not? That kind of thing. We also have question marks around games like State of Decay 3 and Perfect Dark. How far along are they? And I anticipate this year we get updates for those games.
Sounds completely reasonable. Do you think, in your opinion, should Xbox delay any of these to keep the space from being too crowded? Like specifically, let's look at just RPG space. Avowed, Fable, and Outer Worlds. Those are all, you could kind of put those in the RPG space, even if they are different varying types of RPGs. Should anything be intentionally delayed if it's ready?
Nothing.
Go ahead, please.
If you don't mind, and then I want you to counter logic me if you're willing. So I will say the answer to that is a conservative no, and that is to say, Avowed is launching exclusively in the console space on Xbox. Doom is multi-platform. South of Midnight is exclusively for this time being launching on Xbox. Fable, we believe the same thing, and Outer Worlds is multi-platform. So within the ones that we know, Doom, Outer Worlds, and Call of Duty are all going to be multi-platform. If you're trying to move Game Pass subscriptions or Xboxes or a combination of the two, then you want a window of time where you are saying the only place you can get this is in this space. And you can't do that with Doom. You can't do that with Outer Worlds. You can't do that with Call of Duty. So Fable, South of Midnight, and Avowed all have the opportunity to bring people into the Xbox ecosystem. You make accommodations for your big titles. Don't put a game next to COD. Don't put a game directly next to Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah,
that's probably your best. Those are probably your two. Don't do that. But anything else you're probably fine with. You can do a couple games back to back. Sony has pulled that card several times where they've had Sony exclusives launching, within a month or so.
Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, and that's a great thing for your audience. It gives them a reason to buy the console. So, like, unless they're pulling that, then there's no reason to delay anything unless you're trying to line those up to give people a reason to get your console. But that's just consistently not their message any longer. So if I'm them, I make sure that I've got a non-niche title per quarter, like Aura History Untold and Age of Mythology. Those are niche titles. They're not going to appeal. People don't know about them outside of those that are likely interested in it, with the one or two exceptions. Whereas Avowed is going to have more appeal. South of Midnight will have more appeal. I'm not saying a mass appeal. But more people are going to be looking towards those to move a console sale or move a subscription sale versus Aura, Age of Mythology, that kind of thing. So all that to say, you need a reasonably heavy hitter per quarter that is exclusive, asterisk, knowing full well that those are going away for Microsoft.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to counter you, Luke, because your logic lines up exactly with where I'm at. I think the issue is not their games stepping on each other. The issue is do not launch any of your games not named Call of Duty in the same month as Grand Theft Auto. That's the issue. And I think, and to be fair on them, that is not an issue just for them. I'm sure PlayStation with Ghost and everyone else with everything else they've got are waiting with bated breath to see, okay, is GTA getting delayed? Is it not? If it does get delayed, when is it getting delayed to? Like, that aside, I think all of those games, like, it is amazing, don't get me wrong, how many big RPGs they have coming out, and it's amazing that Obsidian is pulling a twofer the way they are. Like, that's genuinely unheard of. I cannot recall another time that's happened in the industry at that scale with these kinds of games. But
and they've got Grounded that they're still supporting.
They're still, they still support it. I mean, they did slow down a fair bit, to be fair, but no, like, amazing work over at Obsidian. So I think these games are distinct.
Xbox is Insomniac.
No, I mean, no, literally. As long as they don't launch like literally on top of each other, I think it's fine. Like I would like don't put Fable and the Outer Worlds 2 out 2 weeks away from each other, but I think a month and a half, yeah, you're fine. If they wanted to, and I am pulling date, I don't know anything. I'm pulling dates and numbers, out of a hat here. But if they wanted to put Fable out in September and then the Outer Worlds 2 out in November, that's totally fine, in my opinion. I think that works.
Now, I know it's kind of a different area, but should Avowed be concerned at all, given it's launching in the crowded February? I mean, we're talking everything is coming out in February, including other RPGs. Like, is there any concern for Avowed and how it does? Because it's fighting for time. It's not fighting. It's not about money at this point. It's fighting for time.
Not if it's good. Not if it's good. If they're confident in its release, send it out there. The audience will find it. So,
yeah, what he said. What he says, and also addendum. I think it would also be slightly more concerning if Game Pass wasn't a thing, and you are at the end of the day then competing for money. But the thing is, for the Game Pass audience, which is going to be high because this is an Xbox console exclusive at launch, it's a matter of okay, so do I want to pay $60, $70 for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? Hypothetically, I'm just using this one game as an example, or do I want to just immediately try Avowed and see how I feel about it? And so you have that flexibility.
And it does work in Avowed's favor a ton because you're talking new IP versus established, like Assassin's Creed, Like a Dragon, Kingdom Come, Monster Hunter. I mean,
no, there's a lot. There's definitely a lot.
So it's and what's been crazy is watching almost like two of those games got pushed up. Like Kingdom Come got pushed up a week, and then Like a Dragon got pushed up a week. So everything is very much, nothing is moving out of that month. It is going to be where it is.
I think the only thing that we might consider they should move from, apart from COD or GTA, is a Switch 2 launch. And that's provided these games don't launch onto Switch 2, which I fully expect at least two of them to do. And so it really will depend on like when that Switch 2 launch is, because I shouldn't say it like that. I strongly believe, based on things that I see, that Xbox will be supporting Switch 2 on day one. So something just put in your mind.
That's,
I guess.
That's a kind of a crazy. I know we're like the red lines are gone at this point, but it's still kind of nuts to think, a console that isn't an Xbox could launch with Xbox stuff. It is kind of insane that we're at that point.
And I used to be bothered by it. I'm sure you could go back into XCP's history and at 5-year history, I think. And then if you went back a year and a half, 2 years, you would hear something opposite of my feelings now, which is that I'm interested in seeing those Xbox games launch onto a Switch 2. I want Halo Infinite and Master Chief Collection. I need Master Chief alive and thriving. And the Xbox audience, through I think Xbox's own poor choices, has just diminished for that. And so where do I get more Halo, more Gears? I get it by those franchises being revitalized from new audiences. So no longer does it bother me the way that it once did. That's not to say it's not strange, because it is. It's like seeing Sonic on Nintendo. It's odd, but you get past it. You get over it. Finn,
so,
those are my thoughts.
There's obviously not just big, huge games that are hitting Xbox. There's also some great indie support, some smaller game support, games like Winter Burrow, Fragpunk. My personal, the ones I cannot wait for, played it at Summer Game Fest, Replaced. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for that game. I know everyone has been waiting for that game for oh so long, because their last trailer was like 2 years ago. So like, any other games that you guys have seen that we're looking forward to when it comes to indie support or smaller game support on Xbox?
I mean, I'll echo Replaced. Replaced looks amazing. I've been waiting for that. That's another one that got affected by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, similar to Stalker 2. So like, I get it. I understand why it's had to be pushed back and all that. But definitely Replaced. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but the console version of Frostpunk 2 is going to be coming out. Now, you can argue whether that's indie or not at a certain level. I don't care. It's an excellent
Still
game.
smaller.
So it's an excellent game. So play it when it hits. I think it's a good mixture. I think it looks to me like a solid mixture considering how many of their first party titles are the big hitters. So I think it's good.
I exist in a strange realm where I don't even understand why people are excited for Replaced. And it's, again, this is not a critique because I think the wording of that can sound condemning. When I say I don't understand it, that's actually what I mean. I don't understand, and I feel like I am missing something. So I'm anxious for that game to come out because I want to see what it is I am missing. I saw it at Summer Game Fest. I was, just to be clear, I was in the room with both of you at Summer Game Fest. And then, it was there at Play Days and such. And I just don't get it. But it's one of those things that I know that I don't get. I know that I'm not in the zeitgeist of it. And so I'm anxious to see what happens. But I'm also in a unique space where everything that I've been excited for has come out now. Arkham Shadow, Power Rangers are both out. Those were the two that I was like, yes, eyes on. Marvel Rivals shocked me that I love it so much. And I like the superhero stuff, of course. And the next things that I'm so excited for, Doom the Dark Ages, Alien on MetaQuest, and Gears E-Day. But everything else, I'm just like, hey, I'm looking forward to that. Like I'm just looking forward to Avowed. I'm really excited to play it. I'm really excited to play South of Midnight. But I'm not hyped about anything beyond Doom and Gears and Alien. And that's a unique space to inhabit for me.
I actually said that about 2024. I think I even talked to Sam about that like at the beginning of last year. Is there's a lot I'm interested in, but not a lot I'm hyped for. And I feel like that is changing a bit for me this year because there are some specific games that I'm just like, oh yeah, cannot wait to get hands on that. But that was definitely how it was last year. Like if you go and look through my author page on Gamingtrend, I did 60 plus reviews last year, and probably 2/3 of it is gear because gotcha. There weren't games I was interested in. So I just went and reviewed controllers and headsets and stuff. Let everybody else have fun with the games they want to play. So it's cool because I feel like it also that opens you up to experience some games fresh because you're not going in with these super hype expectations. Like Alan Wake 2 did not it definitely still blew me away, but I can't even imagine how much even more it would have blown me away if I went into it without this expectations, because I already had sky high expectations. So that's a nice thing is some of these games you're going to be able to go into, Luke, and be like, oh man, this is amazing. How come none of you told me?
Right.
when we did tell you.
You're absolutely right. And I've been very privileged to experience VR for the first time this year, where a lot of that feeling was happening, where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is an entirely new way to experience games. And then to get to have an Arkham game, which is my favorite franchise, has been amazing. And again, I know I previously mentioned the Steam Deck, and I apologize for anybody that's sick of hearing me talk about it, but to experience a high-powered handheld, because I lived for my Vita. I just absolutely adored my Vita. And the
Vita
Switch,
life.
Yeah. I had the white one. Oh, so cool. But I was disappointed with the Switch after the first year. The first year I was like, yeah, we got a lot of growing pains to do ecosystem wise, but I love this experience. And then it didn't grow. It didn't improve its online functionality and some of the cloud saves and the cloud ability. And I was just let down. The Steam Deck seems to me to be a realization of a lot of those things. And so I bring that up because getting to go back and experience games in a different way, to play Arkham Knight as a perfect handheld game with beautiful visual fidelity on an OLED screen feels very special. And it feels special in the way that the MetaQuest feels special because somehow it's new despite having played it before. And that has been my excitement moment around video games right now, is to see how much is available. And I use the word accessible, but I really mean available. But there's so much availability now for high-powered games, for impressive visual fidelity, for top-tier experiences. And that the promise of the Switch, to me, is realized in the Steam Deck and the high-powered portable PCs that you can dock. And I hope that's what Steam or Nintendo Switch 2 does. And I hope that's what Xbox does, if I'm being honest with you.
Yep.
So I hope that didn't
Cool.
get lost in the sauce, but that's where I was going with it.
No, it's cool to get lost in there.
So obviously lots of stuff coming for Xbox. Given the issue of too much content, are there chances that we have anything else drop this year? Like we're talking about, like, it's very rare you go into a year, don't have a showcase, and your year is full. Like there's no way to go around it. There are 5 games there that should launch this year. Your slate is packed. Like we know Perfect Dark has been shown off. There's been gameplay. State of Decay 3 is being worked on. You know, who knows how far ahead it is. Are games like that can they even fit in a schedule, or should they wait?
Do you mind if I go first, Luke?
Please.
No. I think all of the announced games is the way I will phrase this, because there's another asterisk mark. I'm fond of those. With another question you've got coming, and I think the answer there is a little different. Of the games they have announced, I think anything that they haven't said is 2025 is firmly 2026. Perfect Dark, I think that's very firmly 2026. State of Decay 3, Gears, E-Day, I would put all those in in 2026. And I think they'll hit that, but I think that's where they are at. I would not put any of those 3 in 2025. Clockwork Revolution, that's another one. I would put that in 2026.
I want that game so bad.
I seriously, right? It looks amazing. I have faith in Exile. I think Exile is cooking up something special there, but I would put that one in 2026. It's not announced, but I'm going to count this anyway because it's been a mysteriously long time. Forza Horizon 6. This will mark 4 years without a new Forza Horizon. That's the longest we've ever gone, but I don't think it's out this year. I think that makes sense for 2026 because you already just have so much, and we know we're going to get a Call of Duty as well. But there is
you want to avoid GTA,
and you want to avoid GTA. So there's a lot of cards you're building there, and a lot of things you're trying to maneuver specifically. But there is one exception that I know you're going to bring up, and we'll talk about that in a bit.
Sam expertly summed up my thoughts as well. When I look at the 2026 lineup, State of Decay, Perfect Dark, Clockwork Revolution all fit very comfortably in there. And why put them out if they're not perfect when you are at least launching something hardware-wise, at least doing something with your console space and subscription service in 2026? Those are perfect games to put into that rotation. Outside of your Call of Duty rotation, notwithstanding whatever Playground is working with as far as Forza Horizon. And I do wonder how close or far that game is, because I don't see a reason to put it out next year if you're focusing on Fable. The Obsidian problem of releasing 2 games so close to each other is both awesome, but also like, okay, but now what? How long do we wait? Right? If you're the Xbox equivalent of Spider-Man and Spider-Man's Insomniac, and you put out Spider-Man then Miles Morales, and then we got to wait for how long until Spider-Man 2 or then Wolverine? Like, if Obsidian now we have to wait that long time, then that could be an issue. So I hope Playground doesn't fall into that, right? A cadence between titles released is healthy for a studio. So I think 2026 looks fantastic for Xbox if you've got Perfect Dark, State of Decay, Clockwork Revolution, Forza Horizon, should that be there? And I'll let you get to your next question, because I see it. Doc, I'm watching it. I'm ready for it. I know the answer.
Oh, you're good. So we're talking about all of these games that end up, and there is one that can definitely grab a lot of people's attention and keep a lot of people busy for a long time. Do we think that the rumor that Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster is real?
Yeah.
It's not a rumor.
No, I don't have much to expound on except yes. Like I fully believe it's real. I fully believe it's happening.
The thing that totally just blows my mind is just thinking of it in the context of there are 3 other RPGs that you have listed here, Xbox, that are announced for this year. Where do you put it? I mean, again, it kind of just stands on its own. Like that feel it the remasters kind of almost do stand on their own and where they can taste space, but like that's a big remaster. That's not a small like we remastered Banjo Kazooie. This is like big.
All right,
of a
so
remaster.
I'm going to push back on your logic, and I want you to hear my thought, and then counter me if you're able, because I'm interested. I don't think Oblivion has nearly the staying power and name panache that Skyrim does. So you put out your Oblivion right like the month after Summer Game Fest. You put it in July, because at Summer Game Fest you'll get to show it off. All the journalists, all the people that talk and write and are interested and know what Oblivion is, you get them excited for it. The game comes out in theory in July, does well, which you would expect it to do well, provided you don't have a GTA trilogy situation. You expect it to do well, and then the positive hype and coverage that was generated allows that stories to kind of write itself from then on. Because with Starfield, it was like, oh, what's this news? It's the next Skyrim. Nobody said it was the next Oblivion. No one was talking like that. Oblivion is a name that, like, the youth of now, it's 2 generations removed from them, right? It is they grew up with Skyrim. Oblivion was not even a thing for them. And so that's why I say this specifically. Let it come out in July, a month after Summer Game Fest, so people have gone hands-on, written previews, getting coverage out there, streamers get hands-on, and then let kind of the tale of the year be built, because you don't want your Oblivion remaster eating Fable sales. You don't want it eating Avowed sales as it kind of spirals or heads towards expansion or whatever content is dropped. So let it exist right there in the 7th month of the year, right at July.
I agree with June and July. However, my counter is it's not going off of the Oblivion name. It's going off of the Elder Scrolls name. And that is why it sells. And you yourself said the youth of today don't know Oblivion. Mm-hmm. They know Skyrim. That's exactly why they will pick up Oblivion, is because they don't know Oblivion and they know the Elder Scrolls name. And that they're like, oh, wait, they're putting out something that isn't another remaster of Skyrim? I have to go play this. I never played it before. That's why that people will flock to buy Oblivion. Now, I think
there better be some COD skins going with it.
You do a remaster of Oblivion, and it comes to that could be a Switch game, and it will be on PlayStation. I will just guarantee you it'll be on PlayStation.
It's a Switch 2 launch title.
That would be insane. What year is this? But yeah, that's why it will sell, is because yes, it doesn't have the sales of Skyrim, but that's exactly why it'll sell, because it has the name value of an Elder Scrolls game and people will want it.
Yeah, I actually agree with both of you. I think it's going to sell extremely well, but I also do think July sounds perfect. July sounds like the absolute perfect release date, because, in fact, you know what? I'll just go ahead and say we know Avowed's in February. I assume South of Midnight and Doom are going to be somewhere between March, April, and May. Put them out in there. And then if you have the Oblivion remaster in July, you get Fable maybe out in September, then Outer Worlds 2 and Call of Duty October, November. That seems pretty packed full to me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Packed schedule. But now that there are no red lines, what is the cadence for releasing these games on other platforms? Like, if, for instance, South of Midnight, if they're possibly prepping a port, when does that come out on PlayStation? Like, when do you put out something like an Avowed port? If, for instance, there was this is not stuff we know, this is hypothetical, but these are the ones we know that at least aren't on there. How do you rate that, like, where they come out?
So I'd like to go first, and then Luke, you can counter me if you want. I'm going to be real obnoxious and say I don't think there is a cadence, and I think it's genuinely going to be extremely different based on each team. Like, obviously, there's the multi-plat stuff from launch we know is going to be there, so like COD, Outer Worlds 2, blah, blah, blah. But South of Midnight, I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes well over a year if a port happens at all. Because Compulsion is on the smaller side, and so it would take them a lot of time. They're going to be focused on updating the game. But, Indiana Jones, we have an example there, so we know it's going to be a few months where I think the rumor is April right? I don't think that's official, but that's what the rumor is, that Indiana Jones will be in April. Age of Empires, I think some stuff leaked there that Age of Empires 2, the remaster that's on Xbox and PC, that is going to be coming at some point from some stuff people found on Reddit and whatnot. So that's 2 years, if that's the case, if that ends up panning out this year. I know that doesn't help at all, but like, I don't think there's going to be a cadence. I think it just vastly depends on the team and that team situations with that particular game.
I think Sam is nail on the head for that one because of team size, and I don't think there's a porting studio within Xbox or a team that's moving studio to studio to port stuff. So it is about resource availability. I think it behooves Xbox to its high profile stuff like Gears E-Day and the Marcus Phoenix collection, which is still happening from what I understand. It's just, it was further out than we all anticipated. Like the collection launches on the PlayStation. E-Day probably has a 6-month window, right? Which, I'll be honest, I find the 6-month window offensive. Make it a year or don't make it at all. Like, launch multi-platform or make it a year. Something about the 6-month thing just feels odd. And
it's sort of a weird timing, right? Like, it feels,
right, yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Is it because we're accustomed to the 1 year in so many other situations from third-party deals and stuff?
Heck, some of these have been 3 months. Yeah, like it's not. The game's barely been out. You just fixed the bugs, and now the other platform has it.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the thing. Is like, I don't want to be a beta tester. Give me a reason to be excited about this arriving on my platform.
It's literally early access, is what it more or less is.
That's what it feels like
when it's not a year.
Yeah, agreed.
No, I agree. It's kind of a, like you said, that's one thing that I think PlayStation made a very smart move in picking up Nix's, is they have a dedicated studio that is working on these ports with the studios. Like, some studios have the ability to do it, but Nix's, like, even like Insomniac, they could do all of this on their own in their sleep with their hands tied behind their back. But having Nix's there allows them to work on their projects while also doing these and churning out these additional ports. So that's, given you don't have that at Xbox, it makes sense that there's not really if your team can do it, like with Machine Games, it's like, okay, well, we'll go ahead and announce this because we know that they're ready. Or for all we know, Machine Games was already working on some sort of port, or it was just easy to port. So those situations make it simple.
Like I'm not going to name names, but like, there are teams. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. That's why I'm not going to name teams. But there are teams I know that still at this moment don't have a dev kit. So it's like, it's going to be a minute. It might be years if a port ever happens at all. But on the flip side, there's some that I expect, like if Age of Empires comes over, not to make a prediction, but I think Age of Mythology could as well. That, like, why would it not? That makes a lot of sense to me. So, Yeah, I mean, we watched Tokyo Ghostwire and dang it, can't remember the other name. Those launched exclusive on PlayStation. Like, they have people that know how to do it. Deathloop, like, they have people that know how to build these those studios compared to other studios that have only ever worked on the Xbox ecosystem. So a team like Machine Games, all the Wolfenstein games are on PlayStation. They know what they're doing. It's a pretty quick working it out. So I completely agree. It's hard to set a cadence when you don't know what your team is going to be capable of. Some we can make educated guesses. Like, not surprised at all that Outer Worlds 2 is coming to PlayStation so quick at launch. Why? Because the first one came out. The first one came out, and they ported the game to the PS5, like the original. So this team obviously knows what they're doing and can get it all set. All right, now we're on to the back end of all of this, the fun. What do you expect from Xbox in 2025, gentlemen?
So, do you want you have in our notes locked in, could happen, and pipe dream.
This is your predictions, not your expectations. This is what you expect.
Oh, okay, I see the difference then. I expect that Xbox has a great first party lineup Like that each one of the ones we've mentioned, Avowed, Doom, South of Midnight, Fable, Outer Worlds, all review critically very well. I expect that Avowed, South of Midnight, and Outer Worlds don't move the needle at all in any way, shape, or form in terms of subscription sales. I also expect them to be digital and digital only, which I think Avowed is confirmed to be, but I just don't see Xbox going physical anymore. And I expect people to make a big hubbubaloo about those things when in reality, it's just part of the strategy of filling out Game Pass and then launching them multi-platform. Yeah.
Which pretty sure you're right on Avowed. I think the collector's steelbook is just a digital code.
I was just double checking right now. Yeah, I think you are. And there have been a few, like Indiana Jones did get a physical, but like definitely rarer and rarer. It's only the biggest of the big games at this point that are doing that. Yeah, expectation wise, I expect there's, you know what? I don't think this is actually that strong of a statement to make. I expect one of arguably their best first party year ever in terms of critical praise, all around commercial success, all around when you look at the lineup as a whole and the way every game as a whole is being received. I think they will have a fantastic year of software.
Yep. I expect that all of these games are actually going to come out this year. I actually fully believe that they wouldn't have announced Outer Worlds 2 without as a 2025 without. I don't think they're going to push it. I think it's going to land in 2025. Every one of the other games, expect them to do very well. I oddly think Fable is going to be a weird one. I think it's going to be divisive when it comes to like the critical reception of it. I think there are going to be some people who are going to be nostalgic for the old ways of Fable. And I think this Fable I think they're going to stay true to what the game is, but it's going to do its own thing in a good way. I think I'm going to love it, but I think it's going to put some people off, and it's going to be in that weird, like 80 or below. Like I think it could still score high, but I could see people being oddly put off by Fable. Like just a weird expectation that I have in there. I expect hardware will continue to decline this year. Again, when everything is an Xbox, there's no reason to buy one. And I think that's how consumers are going to feel about it. I think there'll still be good sales. I think there's still going to be some things that will sell, like Call of Duty. Call of Duty just sells boxes. GTA, it'll sell some boxes. But I expect PlayStation to make such a push on GTA. I fully expect them to get the marketing for all of that and whatnot and push the Pro as the best box for GTA, that it is going to keep GTA from rising that tide as well as Xbox. But I do expect that Xbox will have its best year because they are going to be dropping games multi-platform and making a bunch of bucks out of it while providing people who are bought into Game Pass with an exception. I mean, this is an exceptional They already have a great catalog. This is an exceptional year. Like if there were ever a year for you to want to spend $240 on Game Pass, this is the year.
I know
good stuff,
because I often hear from some people like, well, is it worth it if I'm only buying 2 or 3 games? And it's like, no, I think you're 100% correct, David. It's like, if there was ever a year to just subscribe for a year and that's the way you want to play stuff, this is probably a good time to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, I say that as like somebody who plays the crap out of Call of Duty, and that's a lot of what I play. It's worth my money going into that subscription, like for all that's coming, because there's a lot of these games I may not have the same time, but because of the Call of Duty time sink to put into them, but I want to play them. So it is a very good year to sign up for Game Pass. So now we're on to the real fun, and that's the predictions. And what I've asked my guests to do is I want one thing that you feel like is locked in. This is going to happen for Xbox this year. One thing that you think that could happen, and then one pipe dream, something that's just out there when it comes to Xbox. Whoever would like to start, go ahead.
All right. I'm taking this one, Sam.
Go ahead.
Cracks knuckles. All right. I gave you 2 pipe dreams because I want to believe in both. Yeah, that's right, Sam. We're stretched out. We're ready to go. Call of Duty, this is my pipe dream, Call of Duty is called Call of Duty Concord. Okay. That is my pipe dream, is that it's called Call of Duty Concord. And that's the whole premise, is that you're trying to stop a Concorde plane in the net. I don't care what the reason is. I hope it's called Call of Duty Concord.
This is just the end of Call of Duty 4.
That's right. That's right. This is Mile High Club. Get it done. So I hope it's called Call of Duty Concord. That's pipe dream 1. Pipe dream 2 is that somehow, some way, the Activision Spider-Man games live again. Whether it's back compat, whether it's remasters, collections, I don't care. I just want those to live again. Let it be multi-platform. I don't mind. But I think it was a big mistake on Marvel's part to allow a character like Spider-Man to exist anywhere exclusively. And that's not to say that those games aren't incredible, because they are. But they're finally on PC, and we're seeing Spider-Man 2 come to PC. Maybe we even see in this Activision Spider-Man games go everywhere. Maybe even the other Spider-Man games go everywhere, the Sony ones. I could see a world where, as exclusivity dwindles, Spider-Man's the one to move. Not Ghost of Tsushima, but Spider-Man. So those are my 2 pipe dreams. Xbox gets those games making a return.
The only one I don't want back is Amazing Spider-Man 2. That game was awful.
Hey, it's part of the package, okay?
That game was bad.
It shouldn't be.
I do have it. I
own it on PS4.
I own it on Xbox One.
I should get a rebate on Game Pass if they put it on there.
I'm one of the
That's
6
how bad it is, and I'm a humongous Spider-Man fan.
I have Spider-Man on Xbox. Okay, I feel like I deserve a medal for that. My could happen is that you get your Gears of War E-Day release date, and it's multi-platform day 1. That's a could happen. Unlikely.
Luke is swinging.
That's right. That's right. Locked in for Xbox is you get Starfield's PlayStation release date this year, and you get confirmation that Xbox is all digital distribution from here on out. Asterisk, not Call of Duty Concord. That can be physical. We want to sell those collectibles.
I was about to say, because Call of Duty alone makes that an incredibly spicy connection.
Yes. Well, Call of Duty Concord's going to be gangbusters.
Okay. All right.
I'm just saying, if they make that Call of Duty Concord remastered, end of a generation. We're done. I'm in for it.
We are done, definitely. Like, I agree with you on that phrasing for sure. Good stuff. I'll go next. I'll go. I will go in reverse, and so we will go in a order of ascending spice. Locked in. Like Luke said, weird that it took this long. Weird that we still haven't seen official. It's time. The Marcus Phoenix collection is finally actually announced this year. Either multi-plat, or maybe it's like one of those weird 6-month windows again. Either way, they can pull either one of those. I think it comes out early next year to pave the way for E-Day. I think that makes sense. Like, put it in January, February, get it out there so people have time to replay the games right going into E-Day. Replay the game starring Marcus Phoenix.
Yeah. Especially for E-Day, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the point there, right? So that's my locked in. My it could happen is one that I think is pretty darn reasonable, and that is, I think Sea of Thieves is a launch title for the Switch 2. I think they make a big deal out of Sea of Thieves now being out everywhere. This is the game that there might be other games they bring to Switch 2. In fact, there definitely will be other games they bring to Switch 2 later, but specifically at launch, that's what I'm going here for. Like, the day this thing is out, is like, yeah, we're supporting it day 1. You can play Sea of Thieves on the go anywhere. You can play it with your friends on PC, PlayStation, Xbox. They reveal a new milestone that keeps on selling. So that's my it could happen. My bold one, I still think that pipe dream, I think, is pretty reasonable as far as pipe dreams go. So I think this is a reasonable pipe dream, but I think they get something worked out with PlayStation, and an Xbox port of Helldivers 2 is announced alongside the Halo ODST crossover with like ODST themed gear and cosmetics and stuff.
Ooh.
That's my pipe dream.
Nice. You can definitely tell who's a podcaster and who's a journo with how incredibly crazy some of those were.
First of all,
What does that mean?
No,
I'm
I'm talking about Luke's.
you're telling me that
Like,
Call of Duty
yours
Concord
actually-
can't be a thing? That's a dope ass name. Sorry, that's a dope name.
I felt like Luke's were more reaches than yours, Sam.
You said pipe dream.
Well, I felt like even your locked in was even further.
What was my locked in one? Was we
Your
got a
locked in
release
was
date?
Starfield on PlayStation 5 with a release date.
And
Like
no disc outside of Call of Duty.
I stand by the disc one. I stand by both of those. Yeah, like Starfield, there's got to generate more income than it did. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So,
All right. I've got mine here. So locked in, what I think is locked in, I think that the rumored Black Ops 2 sequel is coming, and Sledgehammer Games again is coming in clutch with 16 months of dev time, and they're going to make an incredible game.
okay, not to be a punk. Wasn't that Black Ops 3?
No.
Black Ops 3 is not a Black Ops 2 sequel.
This is a direct
Many would argue it's
sequel.
not a game. But
I would argue it's not a game.
It never actually had a it never had a campaign at all. Black Ops 3 did not.
Okay, so in your
Well, no.
Oh, wait,
You're
no,
thinking
that's
of Black
4.
Ops
Never
4. Black
mind.
Ops 3
Yeah.
had a campaign,
Yeah.
but I wish it didn't because of how
Yeah.
bad it was.
It was
that
pretty
was
wild.
the tree one, right? With the tree.
You imagine
Yeah.
yourself in a frozen forest, Luke.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, the real story of the game is only seen in text that is seen for 1 second at the beginning of a mission, and it goes away after that if you don't actually get to see it, and nothing else actually happens. I'm sorry, I can't go in on Black Ops. I can't.
I don't know how you explain that to consumers. Black Ops
Yeah.
2.
What you call it is you would go Black Ops. You would possibly go like Black Ops Cold War. You go with another name.
That's
sequel.
probably what they'll do. Black Ops Near Future. Hey, there you go. That one's free. Activision, take it.
Yeah.
Like,
Black Ops. Sorry, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 : Concord. Done. Done. You're welcome, marketing.
There's been a lot of smoke that this is literally what's happening as a Black Ops 2 sequel, a direct sequel. So I think that's locked in. We'll get that at the Xbox showcase. I could even see there being a developer direct for it, but given it's a direct sequel to something with remastered maps, they might not make it their headliner. They may go with something else. Could happen. I think Doom launches in August. That is my prediction. I think that, that's a good spot for it. That it doesn't really interfere with anything when it sits in August, and it's still before all the big games, and then you're not getting that GTA stealing your lunch money, because there's no way in heck GTA comes out in August.
no, GTA ain't coming out before September. September is the absolute earliest, and if it comes out this year in November,
even September feels wrong. Like I'm either late October or late November is the window, in my opinion. And if it doesn't hit that, it's not coming out. I don't see a December release at all. They want the holiday money, and you don't get that when you launch in December.
I think Jeff Grubb and Jez Corden both said that it was called Grand Theft Auto 6 Concord. And so I'm excited for that one.
You're on this train, huh?
I'm stuck on it, guys. I can't get off.
David, just to say really quickly, I can see August. I think they're going to aim for May, but I can see August if it needs a little more time.
Yeah. And now for my pipe dream, Bethesda announces a new Fallout game coming in 2026.
Yeah, that is my dream.
It's called Fallout Concord.
Yes, there it is.
I knew you would know. I'm not making it. No,
I was ready. Was
not. I added that. That's an addendum that was not written in there. But I would love to see another Fallout game. Now the question would be, New Vegas 2? That would be the question.
I'm not going to say. I don't think it would be called New Vegas 2, but I think if they want a Fallout game out before 2035, it has to be some sort of collaboration with
to be a spinoff,
like a spinoff, a smaller game co-developed with Obsidian, something somewhere in that ballpark, something like that for sure.
Honestly, remaster New Vegas and throw it out. It will, especially with where and this is spoiler territory, but where the Fallout TV show is headed, you should put out a remaster, remake, whatever. you've got too much of that team now internal to not make something happen.
Agreed.
All right. Well, that is where we think the state of Xbox is at this point. We think it's going to be a very successful year for the company. Now, whether fans are going to be happy or not with different decisions they make, that's another question. Of course, you've been redefined as a fan, so that doesn't really matter what you think. But tell us what you think in the comments below. What are your expectations for Xbox? Tell us what your predictions are. We would love to hear it. And now I want to hear from my wonderful guests to tell us where we can find more of their stuff, because after all, I know Luke, he talks about Hellblade and he made a great Hellblade 2 review that's on his channel, and Sam, he talks about Indiana Jones and he did the review for Indiana Jones. So tell us about it.
I'll start. Obviously you can find me on socials at Insipid Ghost, but more than that, I will say thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure to get to see both of you again on the same screen together, because it was just dope seeing you all in person this past summer. And if anybody enjoyed my content here, then I'll ask you to check out the Xbox Expansion Pass and support us over on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and whomever, whatever entity is making content that you enjoy, I'll ask you guys to support that, because it's tough being a journalist. It's tough being a content creator. It's tough trying to exist in the nebulous space that often, exists between them. So wherever you're getting your content, whatever that content is, find ways to support them, whether it's liking, sharing, if you're able to support their various Patreons or financial incentives, just keep that content alive by supporting them. So that's what I will ask of anybody that enjoyed me here. Thank you.
Well said, Luke. Well said. So you can find me on social media like Blue Sky at Samuel Tolbert. I technically have a Twitter account, but I'm not on there. So please find me elsewhere. Please find me off of that website. You can find a lot of what I'm writing on places like Windows Central. I'm constantly covering news, previews, reviews, and editorials over there. And to echo what Luke said, if you are enjoying someone's content, whether they're a journalist, writer of any kind, a podcaster, any and all, hitting all the boxes, support them any way you can. Doesn't have to be financial. Obviously, that's great if you can. If you can support a Patreon, multiple Patreons, that's fantastic. But even just sharing someone's work, whether it's a written article or a podcast or a video, and commenting and saying and telling them you appreciated it, that really helps. It helps more than you realize right now, because it is tough. It is tough behind the scenes for a lot of us in different ways, but also in similar ways. So please do. And these guys both do great work, and I'm happy to call them not only peers, but also my friends. So
Likewise,
sir. Well, thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate you checking this out. If you liked what you heard, we have 2 other episodes about Nintendo and PlayStation also on the channel. Please go check those out. Thank you as always. Peace out. We'll see you in 2025.